for decades. You know, the undisputed king of the canine world was the Labrador Retriever. I mean, athletic, robust, built for the outdoors.
Oh, absolutely. Built for retrieving, bounding across those big suburban backyards. If you asked anyone to just, draw a dog, they drew a lab or a golden retriever.
Exactly. But today,
Yeah.
that expectation has just been completely shattered.
Yeah, it really has.
Because the most registered dog breed in several countries right now, it isn't built for the outdoors at all. It's this wrinkly, heavy-breathing little dog that can barely handle a brisk walk on a summer day.
Right.
The French Bulldog is completely taken over.
It is a total regime change in canine popularity. I mean, you see it everywhere.
Everywhere.
They're sitting outside every coffee shop. They're dominating your social media feeds. They've essentially become the default urban companion.
Which brings us to our mission for today's deep dive. We are pulling from this really comprehensive stack of veterinary and behavioral sources, and our goal is to look at how a dog with this many fundamental physical limitations just conquered the world.
Yeah, it's a fascinating question.
Because there is this massive gap between what people, assume about these dogs based on their cute viral appearance and the actual biological reality of sharing your life with one.
And that gap is exactly where things get complicated for new owners. I mean, when a breed's popularity skyrockets this fast, the aesthetic appeal just outpaces genuine understanding.
Where people fall in love with the look.
Exactly. They fall in love with the idea of the dog, the big eyes, the cartoonish proportions, without really understanding why the animal is built that way.
Yeah.
And how that highly engineered physical structure literally dictates every single aspect of its daily survival.
Okay, so I want to get into the biology because it's wild. But to understand why the French Bulldog acts and looks the way it does, we actually have to look backward. And this was the first huge surprise for me in our sources.
Oh, their origin.
Yeah. They aren't originally French. They are like this weird accident of industrial migration.
That's right. Their genetic roots actually trace back to 19th century England, specifically to the lace-making communities of Nottingham.
Okay, wait, not into like Robin Hood Nottingham.
Yep, exactly. During the Industrial Revolution, these lace makers wanted a really small companion dog, something that could, sit quietly in their laps while they worked, but also do a little bit of ratting around the workrooms. So they just started selectively breeding standard bulldogs down in size.
Wait, standard bulldogs?
Yeah.
Because when I think of traditional bulldogs, I think of like bull baiting, guarding, fairly aggressive historical roles, right? How did they get from that to a tiny lap dog?
Basically, by consistently selecting the absolute smallest of the litters, they essentially created a miniature, highly docile version of the breed. But then the lace industry was disrupted by machinery.
Right, the Industrial Revolution doing its thing.
Exactly. So that forced many of these workers to migrate to France to find work, specifically, Normandy and then Paris. And naturally, they brought their tiny, bat-eared bulldogs with them.
So it was just a working-class companion dog that happened across the English Channel.
Yeah.
So how did it become the ultimate Parisian fashion statement?
Well, it really came down to their highly unusual appearance and their temperament. I mean, once they arrived in Paris, the local bohemian crowd, the artists, the writers, and especially the city sex workers, they just became completely enamored with them.
Oh, wow, really?
Yeah. These dogs were quiet, they were small enough to carry, and they looked incredibly distinct, almost avant-garde,
Oh, that makes sense. They fit the vibe.
Right. They didn't require the intense physical exercise that a hunting dog or a terrier would. They were cultivated over time purely to be fashionable companions.
So if you, as a listener, are bringing one of these dogs into your apartment today, you aren't bringing in a ratter or a guard dog. You're bringing in a dog whose genetic full-time job is just to sit right next to you.
Exactly. Think about the genetic hardwiring of most familiar breeds, right? Like a border collie has this innate drive to herd and control movement.
Right, they try to herd your kids.
Exactly. Or a beagle is compelled to follow a scent. But the French bulldog was stripped of those working drives. Over generations in Paris, it was bred for one highly specific psychological trait.
Which is?
The absolute necessity of being present with its human.
The sources call them the ultimate Velcro dog.
Yeah.
Which is just so perfectly descriptive. They physically demand to occupy the exact same few feet of space as you at all times. Like you move to the kitchen, they move to the kitchen.
Right. And this is where that historical purpose creates some very real modern behavioral challenges. Because of this intense need for proximity, they experience profound physiological stress if they are isolated.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, we aren't just talking about a dog getting bored and chewing a shoe. We are talking about genuine emotional distress and separation anxiety. They are not, they're not like a livestock guardian dog that is perfectly content patrolling a property alone for 12 hours.
See, that completely contradicts the conventional wisdom. You hear people say all the time, I live in a tiny studio apartment and I work out inside the house all day, so a Frenchie is perfect because they're small and lazy.
And that is a fundamental misunderstanding of what a dog actually needs from its environment. Space is practically irrelevant to a French bulldog. What matters is the human anchor.
The human anchor. I like that.
Yeah, a 500 square foot apartment where the owner works from home is a vastly superior environment for this breed than a sprawling multi-acre estate where the owner is gone for most of the day.
Because if the emotional connection is severed, the square footage just doesn't matter.
Exactly. The physical space doesn't comfort them. The proximity to you, the owner, does.
Right. And that actually brings us to a huge point in the sources, because this misconception about their laziness is everywhere. People see them lounging on the couch and assume they're just, low-maintenance dogs who simply prefer not to exercise.
Right.
But their lack of stamina isn't a personality quirk, is it? I mean, it's a strict structural limitation.
It's entirely structural, and to understand this, we have to look really closely at their skull shape. The veterinary term is brachycephalic.
Brachycephalic.
Right, which essentially just means a shortened head. So, through intense selective breeding, the bone structure of the French Bulldog's muzzle has been drastically compressed. It's been pushed almost entirely flat against the face.
And the visual in the sources that really made this click for me was comparing the bone to the soft tissue.
Yes, that's a great way to look at it.
Right. Because the breeders selectively shrank the bony frame of the snout over decades. But they didn't shrink the soft tissue inside.
Oh.
So the airway, the soft palate, all that fleshy internal material, it's all the exact same size it would be in a dog with a normal long snout.
Exactly.
It's literally like trying to stuff a king-size mattress of soft tissue into a twin-size bed frame of a skull.
That is anatomically spot on. You have this massive excess of soft tissue crowded into a highly restricted bony space, and the biological consequences of that crowded tissue are profound.
I mean, I can only imagine.
For example, the soft palate, which is the flap of tissue at the back of the roof of the mouth, it's often too long for the shortened skull, so it actually dangles down and partially blocks the windpipe.
Wait. So when people post those videos of their Frenchies snoring really loudly while they're awake or, making those grunting piglet noises,
Yeah.
that's not just a cute quirk.
Not at all. From a veterinary perspective, it is the auditory evidence of airway resistance.
Oh, my God.
It is literally the sound of an animal having to actively work harder than it should just to pull ambient air into its lungs. That restricted airway is the defining reality of the dog's physical existence.
But if their airway is that obstructed, how do they even survive when the temperature rises? Because dogs don't sweat like we do.
Right, they don't. And that is exactly where this structural limitation can quickly become fatal. To understand the danger, you have to look at the thermodynamics of how a normal dog cools down. They rely entirely on panting. Panting works by rapidly moving a large volume of air over the moist tissues of the nasal passages and the tongue.
Like an evaporative cooler.
Exactly. As that moisture evaporates, it cools the blood circulating in the head, which then circulates through the rest of the body to lower their core temperature.
But wait, if you have that king-size mattress of tissue blocking the airway,
then the built-in cooling system is fundamentally bottlenecked. It's like trying to air condition an entire house by blowing cool air through a cocktail straw.
oh, wow. That's a brutal image.
It is. And when a French Bulldog gets hot, they try to pant faster. But because the airway is so crowded, drawing in air rapidly actually creates a vacuum effect.
The vacuum effect.
Yeah, it can suck that excess soft tissue further down into the windpipe, blocking it even more.
It is terrifying. So the harder they try to breathe, the more they basically choke themselves.
Precisely. This means a normal 20-minute walk on a humid 75-degree afternoon, a walk that, say, a golden retriever wouldn't even notice,
Right.
that can rapidly escalate into a fatal heat stroke for a Frenchie. You simply cannot treat them like a standard dog when the sun is out. They require short, frequent exercise during the coolest parts of the day, and just absolute vigilance regarding temperature and humidity.
Okay, but this naturally begs a massive question. If
Yeah.
this anatomy causes so many functional problems, like if they can't even go for a standard summer walk without risking an emergency, why is the demand for them higher than it has ever been in history?
Well, the sources point very clearly to the visual culture of the internet. We are looking at a powerful algorithm-driven feedback loop.
Let's trace that loop because it's fascinating. I mean, we are hardwired as humans to respond to certain visual cues, right?
Hmm.
The baby schema.
Yes, exactly. Kinshin schema. Humans have a deeply ingrained evolutionary response to large, wide-set eyes, a flat face, and a large head relative to the body. It naturally triggers our caregiving
Well, it
instincts.
makes us want to nurture them.
And French Bulldogs have been bred to perfectly hack that psychological trigger. When people see them, they experience what scientists call cute aggression.
Right. And on social media, cute aggression translates directly into engagement. You see a video of a Frenchie with its massive eyes and flat face snoring on a couch. It gets millions of likes, and it gets pushed to the top of everyone's feed.
Exactly. But here's the really dangerous part of that loop. Algorithms reward extreme features because they catch the eye faster. The flatter the face, the more pronounced the wrinkles, the more cartoonish the dog looks, the more engagement it
Which
gets.
sends a very clear economic signal to breeders.
Right. It creates a massive financial incentive to breed for the extremes. As demand surged, some breeders realized they could charge premium prices for the dogs with the most exaggerated, shareable features.
Well, that's so sad.
They began selecting the dogs with the flattest faces and the most compact bodies to reproduce, completely sacrificing the functional structure of the airway just to chase an aesthetic trend.
So because those extreme traits go viral, the general public just assumes that's what a good or standard Frenchie is supposed to look like.
Yeah.
How on earth does a potential owner navigate that? Like, how do you know what is actually normal?
The sources emphasize a crucial rule of thumb here, which is common isn't the same as healthy.
Oh, I like that. Common isn't the same as healthy.
Right. Just because you see a million videos of French bulldogs gasping or struggling to walk, it doesn't mean that's an acceptable quality of life. A responsible breeder actually operates in direct opposition to those viral trends.
Wait, what are you looking for when you talk to a breeder?
You are looking for someone who prioritizes functional structure over exaggerated aesthetics. You want to see dogs that actually have a slight muzzle, not a totally flat profile.
Okay, that makes sense.
And most importantly, a good breeder will welcome direct, pointed questions about airway health, soft palate surgeries, and genetic testing. If you ask about the snoring and the breeder dismisses it as, just what the breed does, you need to walk away.
Walk away immediately. Now, I want to pivot a bit to what it actually looks like to care for one of these dogs on, like, a random Tuesday. Because the anatomy hides some very unexpected grooming challenges.
Oh, absolutely.
Right. If you just look at a Frenchie, they have this incredibly short, sleek coat. My immediate assumption is that they require zero grooming.
The coat itself is very low maintenance, but the altered bone structure demands a daily routine that most people never anticipate. Because their muzzle has been compressed, the excess skin around their face bunches up into very deep folds.
Ah, the famous Frenchie wrinkles. They look so cute online.
Yes, they do, but structurally, those folds are deep, dark, warm crevices. If you think about the biology of that environment, it is the perfect breeding ground for yeast and bacteria.
Oh, yuck.
Yeah. Moisture from drinking, food particles, natural skin oils, they all get trapped deep inside those wrinkles.
So if you aren't paying attention,
The dog can rapidly develop a condition called skin fold pyoderma. It's a severe bacterial infection that causes terrible inflammation, pain, and honestly foul odors.
oh man.
To prevent it, an owner has to physically separate those folds and manually clean and dry deep inside them every single day.
Wow. So you're basically wiping down their face like a toddler every single day.
You have to, and you have to monitor their ears and paws constantly for similar yeast issues. The daily maintenance isn't about brushing hair, it is entirely about managing the anatomical quirks that selective breeding created.
Wait, so you're telling me this dog has extreme heat sensitivity, struggles to breathe if it gets too excited, and requires daily medical level grooming? That sounds like a terrible mix for a house with, energetic kids who want to wrestle on the floor.
It is definitely a dynamic that requires extreme caution. I mean, emotionally, French Bulldogs are highly adaptable and incredibly affectionate with children. They love being part of a family.
Sure, the Velcro thing.
Right. But physically, they are fragile. Because of their heavy bodies and shortened spines, they are really prone to disc issues in their back. Children must be explicitly taught that this is not a rough and tumble dog.
You can't treat them like a lap.
Exactly. You cannot play rough with them, you cannot encourage them to jump off high furniture, and you have to constantly monitor their breathing if they get worked up during play.
So, synthesizing everything we've pulled from these veterinary sources, what does this all mean for someone listening who is considering bringing a Frenchie into their life? Are they actually a good fit for a first-time dog owner?
The consensus from the sources is a highly qualified yes.
Okay, let's define that qualification.
Well, on an emotional and behavioral level, they are fantastic for novices. They don't have the intense, destructive drives of a working dog, and their desire to bond makes training the basics fairly straightforward.
Right, they want to please you.
Exactly. But the qualification is that they require a level of health literacy that far exceeds almost any other common breed.
So you cannot just pour kibble in a bowl and open the back door.
You cannot wing it with this dog. As the owner, you become their life support system in a lot of ways. You have to be the one monitoring the humidity before a walk. You have to be the one maintaining the hygiene of their skin folds. And crucially, you have to strictly manage their diet.
Yeah, the diet management really stood out in the sources. Because, a chubby, roly-poly Frenchie gets a lot of likes on Instagram, but internally, it's a disaster, isn't it?
It's catastrophic. Think back to that king-size mattress analogy. You already have a deeply compromised airway and a heavy, compact chest cavity. If you allow the dog to become overweight, that extra fat literally deposits around the neck and chest.
Which just crushes everything even more.
Right. It further compresses the windpipe in the lungs. It turns a restricted airway into a suffocating one. Keeping a French Bulldog incredibly lean is not a cosmetic choice. It is a strict medical necessity.
There's a line from the sources that I think perfectly distills this entire dynamic. The French Bulldog doesn't ask for a highly experienced owner, it asks for an informed one.
That is the perfect summary. Being an informed owner means loving the animal enough to accept the biological reality of its body, rather than the romanticized, memeified version of the dog that exists on the internet.
Which really brings us full circle to how they dethroned the Labrador in the first place,
Yeah.
We've replaced the rugged outdoor companion with a fragile, incredibly loving Velcro shadow.
We really have.
But looking at the sources today, I want to leave you with something a bit deeper to ponder about this whole phenomenon. We talked extensively about how social media engagement drove breeders to exaggerate this dog's feature.
The algorithm effect.
Right. When you strip all of that back, what does it say about our modern digital culture that we have literally, genetically re-engineered the physical body of a living creature, specifically to maximize how shareable it is on a screen?
It raises some profound questions about our priorities, honestly. We have allowed an aesthetic preference to just override basic biology.
Yeah, we chased a cartoonish, viral look, even when those exact aesthetic traits fundamentally compromise the animal's most basic ability to take a deep breath or go for a walk in the sun.
It's sobering.
It is. The new king of the canine world is undeniably lovable, and they clearly make incredible companions if cared for correctly. But they're also a living, breathing reflection of exactly what we value in the age of the internet. Think about that the next time a video of a snoring Frenchie pops into your feed. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.